Thank you all for attending, and I'm sorry I was not here at the last meeting. Very sorry. But anyway, we're going to call this meeting to order of the March 19th Green Lake Remac meeting. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from January 22nd, if I might. Motion. Anyone second? Seconded? Anyone have any discussion, changes, concerns about the minutes? All right. Are we all in approval then of the minutes? Very good. Thank you. All right. Standing reports. Interim agency coordinator.
So Jack and I are going to be finalizing the metal control training this weekend, and then it should be coming out this following week, so that we can get it out by April. We're also going to be talking about our study for this year, so that we get that started. Right now, it may be airway. We're additionally going to do the nitrous oxide study, but that fell through due to cost. So, that'll do it.
My turn?
Okay. Your turn.
The only thing I have at this point for that is we held a conference, and I think it went very well. A lot of people were there. Ross, I don't know if you have anything to add to it?
No, it was, once again, nice job by the committee, the council, the speakers. It was, I enjoyed it. I was learning stuff. You know, you can't teach an old dog something.
I had a wonderful time at the conference, and I learned stuff too. I may try to practice medicine someday. I learn, keep learning. But no, it was an excellent conference. It was fairly well attended, and thank you everyone that participated and helped set it up.
I mean, one of the things we have to take a look at is we went from 4 tracks on Saturday down to 3 because, as most of you know, the attendance in conferences is dwindling because of the folks being able to do the Center Learn or CMEs in-house and different things like that. It's not just ours, it's even at Vital Signs we notice it as well. So we went from 4 tracks down to 3 so that at least the presenters putting their time and effort into it had more than 4 people to present to. And again, we will look at that again when the conference committee comes together to decide if they want to do something different for next year. But other than that, everything went well. Hobart hosted us again. We also have the date reserved for next year, which is the 28th and 29th of February. And we're all in one building. We worked out well this year. They had an addition, and so everything was kept in one building. Nobody had to walk in the weather other than to and from the parking lot. So I think it went well.
Good?
I'm good.
Who wants to talk about the farm medic class coming up?
Sure. So we are presenting a courtesy of Dr. Russ Burkett and Greg Jayla, RN from Guthrie, are presenting an agricultural and farming emergencies class to at the North Central Ambulance Base, and they presented to the physicians here for approval for CME credit through the region, the LMAC program.
A little out of order, but I figured I thought we would include it under that report. So, how many hours is the class going to go?
2 hours evening. 2-hour program.
A 2-hour program, and you're looking for how many?
2 hours.
2 hours of CME?
Sure.
All right. This will all be indoors, all lecture, any hands-on?
It's all lecture.
Okay. And who's teaching?
Dr. Russ Burkett and Greg Jayla from Guthrie.
Any questions, discussion? I'm looking for a motion. I'm sorry?
There's an outline floating around somewhere.
So look for a motion.
Looked like a pretty comprehensive
Yeah.
packet.
Yeah, I think
They're
so.
teaching this in the Pennsylvania area. They've got credits to the Pennsylvania regions.
And certainly this region has a little bit of farming and occasionally some farm injuries, so it would definitely be just a little bit. So I'd be looking for a motion from a voting member. Motion. Second? Second. And all, again, on voting members, anyone opposed to us supporting this for CME?
What's the date on that, please?
That is actually this the 24th of this month. There's some flyers up front too. There's also
Okay, so no one's opposed.
registered.
Excellent. So thank you to LifeNet for supporting that. And I know there's some other CME offered by Mercy Fight, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But definitely, you guys, thank you very much, all of you, for supporting the region and providing this stuff. All right, so for my report, I'd like to start off. I did get a chance to look at the video from last meeting, and I guess maybe a little bit of some definitions or a little description, and I apologize for maybe we should sort of go through our mission each meeting. I do that at other meetings that I work with. And as the REMAC, the Regional Emergency Medicine Advisory Committee, we're a committee of the council. And correct me if I go astray.
You're straight.
Well, I just started, but. So as such, it is our job, the voting members, physicians, and all of you others who support us so importantly, to ensure that the region, all 4 of the counties and the pre-hospital providers in those 4 counties have got the right training, have got the right education, get the right experiences, and it's the right people doing the right job to take care of our patients. We then report to the council, who takes care of pretty much the remainder. We are not a political entity, we're a clinical entity. Am I still okay?
Doing good.
Okay. And it's important, and I'm trying to maybe add a little humor, but I don't really have to do much to have people laugh at me. But it's so important that we all understand why we're here, and I think most of us do, but sometimes even I forget. We are not political. We are strictly concerned with the health care, the provision of pre-hospital care, who, how, when. And that's pretty much what we do at this group. The council, and some of the members here are council members, deal with the rest, the politics, and then we go to the state, and I'm not even going to venture into that realm. And at the state level, I represent, and Matt is the alternate representative, to the State Emergency Medicine Advisory Committee, that then reports to the council, the SEMSCO. Again, the SEMSCO does the politics, the CMAC takes what we bring clinically. Their CMAC is the one that works on protocols and what level we're going to practice at, things like that. So it's real important when we're sitting here that we try to forget where do we come from, who do we represent. We represent the 4 counties of the Finger Lakes Regional EMS, and we're here to make sure that those providers that we say are okay out there to provide are doing the right thing. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that and lead off with that. I had a wonderful opportunity this past week to meet with Senator Funke in Fairport, New York, and talk about EMS issues. There's been a lot of issues coming up, obviously almost all surrounding funding. And if any of you are looking to get a big chunk of money, probably not going to happen. Our concerns were, let's salvage what we have been getting. And there was a risk that in the new budget they were going to cut Medicaid payments for EMS, and that Medicare would cut as well, and it was looking like another 20% off the top, which is already millions and millions below what it should be. I was assured by Senator Funke that most of the people in the Senate and apparently in the House have pretty much said, no, Mr. Cuomo, that isn't going to happen. So hopefully he's right, and it sounds like everything that I'm hearing is correct. We're not going to see that cut. I don't think it's going to be changed to an increase, but it certainly doesn't look like we're going to have a major cut. I also spoke to him at length about the reimbursements going to people and eventually ending up at Best Buy for widescreen TVs instead of coming to the ambulances directly. He had some awareness of that, and that's been discussed. So that's not out of the question. We may see a change happen there. He was very interested in community paramedicine and couldn't quite figure out why we weren't doing it already. And I kind of threw the various associations like ENA and visiting nurse and those groups out into the bus, and I apologize to any of my nursing or visiting nurse type people. And he was very interested in that. One of the things we've got going with Senator Funke is that his right-hand person is a past emergency department PA who's retired. And she was very interested and continued to kind of push him to take notes and be interested. So he left with a good solid page of notes for me, and we now have a very good, I think, line of communication with that. So hopefully we'll see some support from them and maybe some changes down the road. It's been a little while since we've had our last CMAC meeting. Dr. Talbot presented my notes from the last CMAC meeting at the last meeting here, and the next meeting's coming up next month, May. So I don't really have a lot more to report. So that's pretty much it for my report. But I was very happy with my meeting with Senator Funke, and hopefully we'll see some progress legislative towards maybe some EMS improvement. RSA committee.
So we started disseminating the information to the candidates. We set up a group, Dr. Surratt set up a group chat called Duo, right? Very, very, very good conversations, a lot of knowledge being shared. The next step would be to disseminate a pre-test and then go forward and schedule the actual class. The committee itself will be meeting on April 11th at 10 a.m. at my place, Victor Farmington. That's going to be our I guess, annual meeting to discuss where we go for the next year. Also discuss current providers and training and all that. And hopefully we'll have a good conversation, have a good report, come back in May. Dr. Stark, you have anything else to add?
Yeah, we changed the education. We're constantly developing how the information is put across. So this time, we're still providing the reading.
I'm sorry, providing the...
We're still providing the readings, the text. Okay. We've moved to some case-based questions as well. And then the big change this time is we're using GroupMe, which is a social media group app for training. It's kind of once I initiate a discussion, so we initiated a simple discussion on oxygenation. People have signed up to this. It goes out to their phones. They can comment on it. There's discussion back and forward. You can attach files and everything like that. They do it all over their phone. What the cool thing is if you don't participate in that discussion, after a day, it kicks you out of the discussion. So you have an option. You can participate in the discussion and follow along and learn something, or you cannot participate in the discussion. And these are questions that we would typically ask in the practical session. So there's definitely a motivation. But the discussion was actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
some of the stuff that was happening, and people are interactive. And about a day and a second after people get kicked out of the discussion, they're texting me to say, why did I get kicked out of the discussion? And I say, well, if you don't want to participate, then you can't be a passive writer on this one. So that's the new changes. We're moving to essentially a smartphone-based education process for the pre-education stuff.
So one of the problems we've had since we started the program, and it's really in my mind pretty much the only problem, because we have seen just leaps and bounds since you folks took this project on. But the problem has been CME, continuing education for the guys that are already accredited, certified. And we've tried every which way possible, and nothing's really been successful. Obviously, we know social media and apps that's where people are.
Yep.
Do you think this is maybe going to be a process for us to be able to provide CME and keep track of it?
So there is a function within this. It was developed by a group of universities. So there is a function to send out questions at the end of whatever you want to call it, an iteration and a discussion. And you can send out readings as well. And so theoretically, we could have, because CME basically needs a pre-test, some educational experience, and a post-test to provide some evidence that they've learned something. And you can send out questions, they can answer the questions, and then technically could complete a CME process. So it's certainly a possibility. We were just in phase one of using it. It was one of the universities they basically, St. John Fisher are moving all of their education over to smartphones, and they don't even use email anymore, let alone PDFs and links. So everyone is learning on their phone, and they're doing it in these 3 to 5 minute educational blasts, and then they're going away having their Starbucks, I don't know, checking their Snapchat, and then they're coming back and they're firing some more stuff in. So I wanted to see how it worked. It actually worked pretty good, and certainly from the educator side of it, it's really easy. It's really easy. You don't have to make slides.
Right.
You can just fire them straight on there, and it goes straight through the phone.
Clearly, we're not ever going to come up with a real solid lecture series for CME,
No.
and this sounds like it may be a very good alternative.
You've got to use the medium that people use to teach
Absolutely.
it. So if the students are saying cell phones is what works, and smartphones is what works, and that the colleges, we can't keep on blasting emails if they don't check their email type thing. So,
Well, I'd like to be involved in that too, as long as I can increase the font size.
well, I'll kick you out after a day and
There you
an
go.
hour. So.
But no, this sounds like this is a really good avenue to
One of
follow.
the things that we're going to accomplish in our April meeting is we're going to get an updated contact information for all the RSI providers in the region. And once we get that out, disseminate a database, and that could make this facilitation easier.
Excellent. Because again, another problem that I didn't list is that we still kind of don't have track of where people are, because people move around a lot, and how much activity they've had in RSI.
One of the things that the committee developed was a form, just like the form that the candidates had to have their medical director sign. And then we have a form for the agency for all the RSI providers that are still current that meet the criteria that the committee developed, have their medical director sign it, present it to the committee. So we'll have a list of updated providers.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Anything else?
Set a date for testing. You can't.
We have not, correct?
No, because most people don't have their schedules.
We're going to try to do that in the April meeting.
Yeah.
Jim, just check the app, will you?
There's no date on it.
Somebody got kicked out.
Kicked out.
We'll secure a date.
Okay.
We'll try to secure a date by then.
All right, guys, anything else? Although that's way more than enough, thank you. Very good, thank you. Advanced Practice Committee.
We met a couple weeks ago. The big discussion from that meeting to bring to this body is adding the placement of OG tubes as NG-OG tubes as a regional option as it is described in the collaborative protocol, with the caveat from that you have to be regionally trained and approved. We would like to move forward with that with the ALS committee, working with the training ed folks to get a brief training out to the ALS providers in the region. We're thinking maybe a short video. I mean, NG-OG tube placement isn't a big deal. It's not a significant skill, if you will. And then the idea is either to do an online video for training, or get a agency rep from each ALS agency throughout the region in and do a train the trainer, and then they can take it back to their people, as opposed to trying to cycle everybody through a practical skills eval, which, as we know, is difficult.
Have you reached out to anyone training in it yet?
I wanted to bring it here first before we move forward.
I've struggled with more than my fair share of OG and NGs.
It's not the easiest procedure, you're right. However, certainly in their cardiac arrest patients where there's been significant BLS, bag valve mask, I think it would help us a lot with the airway management side. And certainly there is some education, there's certainly some contraindications to them. But I think with the right presentation, I think our folks could probably do it and up the level of care in the region.
Isn't there a video out there, Jason, already? Like, I remember about a year and a half ago. It was Milram.
Yeah, it's part of the collaborative protocols, right? Yeah.
They trained folks on it about 6-7 years ago.
Any discussion amongst the
I'm more
group?
comfortable if it was just OG instead of leaving that
Yeah,
decision, and because if you make it OG, then it's, I think, a lot more straightforward
Right.
and less complications.
Just double checking
That would,
protocol right now.
impact the cure.
I believe it is OG only. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be OG only.
That makes
Okay.
yeah.
Any other discussion? Looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Any motion?
Well, whatever one you need.
So as simply put as
Just
to approve the use of the collaborative protocols for OG placement in this region?
I like the sounds of that.
All right, the second, and we need a roll call vote, or are we okay with?
Clarification, training at the agency level or training at the regional level?
Good point. Well, I guess we need to have a little discussion. Do we want to do, or do we want to send it to training and ed and let them decide what they want to do with it? So we have a couple of options here.
Yeah, I mean, do we push out the Melrose training video for the didactic and the demonstration? And work with training and ed to do train the trainer for practical training for the agencies?
I think different agencies have different ways of training their medics. As the med director for Wayne County ALS, I'm happy to do the training internally, but it would be nice to have available the resources to train, and then I can make a decision if I want my techs to watch the video and then come to a training session internally. I don't think that we need to put the weight on the region to train. I think it should be resources made available by the region, and then agencies can determine their own training method. And
So it would fall to the training personnel at each agency and their medical director
their medical
to approve.
director to determine the best way to train the people that they have in the agency.
How do people feel about that?
I like that.
We add that on to the motion?
Or it can be a separate, I mean,
We have a motion on the floor, so it could be amended or we could move ahead.
You could have a friendly amendment to the motion on the floor.
Yes, sir.
training resources to be provided by the region, training to fall to the agencies and medical directors to determine.
Secondly amended.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. Anyone opposed to that? I don't see anyone raising hands, so it does appear as though it's approved. And I think that's a definite step in the right direction, yet again. Excellent. Anything else from advanced practice?
No, that's it for now.
Okay. And you guys are going to have some discussion on SCT protocols down the road. Excellent. Mercy Flight Central.
2 educational opportunities coming up. Our annual education day, EMS education day is Friday, May 31st. We've got some cool flyers here we'll leave. And then tonight we have a pediatric trauma lecture from Dr. Bob Dorman from Pediatric Golisano Children's Hospital at Strong. It's at our base at 1800, if anyone's interested.
Thank you, folks. Lightning, anything further?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Beyond the education that we're offering on the 24th at the North Center Ambulance Base, also April 24th, we'll be hosting a WebEx seminar at each of our base locations, and the topic this time is stroke care and the acute treatment window, presented by Dr. Masood from Upstate Medical Center. We've done this in the past, and it's been pretty successful. And we've been hosting these typically at our base locations, but if there's enough interest in an agency to have us host at your agency, we will come out and set up the WebEx for you there as well. So you can reach out to us for that if you would like. And we're also looking at targeting September 7th of this coming year for a critical care conference to target looking at a location right now, possibly Del Lago, but preliminary for a critical care conference for the state of New York.
Very good.
And we're still accepting any ongoing requests for landing zone utilization review classes. Reach out to us or visit our webpage.
Okay.
Happy to host you.
Very good. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Thank you. Any other committees? We do have, Jim, you are on the agenda. But any other agencies or committees that need to present anything?
I just have one.
Okay.
RGH contacted us to do with Medtronics. They're going to offer a stroke update on LOVs and everything. It will be April 11th at 6:30 in the evening at Clifton Springs Hospital.
Stroke. Okay, very good.
What is that on again?
Stroke.
Is that the LPICs or strokes?
Sir?
Craig Lakes has 2 educational opportunities coming up, April 3rd, behavioral.
Start putting them on the agenda.
7 p.m. And May 18th and 19th, we are hosting a technical lunch program at our facility.
You're kind of hidden around the corner there.
Sorry.
And you're quiet today. Thank you, sir. I have one question for the group. I understand the University of Rochester does have their stroke ambulance out on the road. Has anyone in the Finger Lakes region interacted with them? I think they're primarily covering the city, aren't they?
If it's coming down?
May.
We're arranging for show and tell May 5th at the ALS committee meeting, yes.
I think, Jack, at the stroke conference on Thursday, they're only staffed 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and it's only the city of Rochester.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
The next comments they made is that they may try to push out to the suburbs, but there was no comment about them clinically coming out further yet. We've had some great anecdotal successes, like door to needle in 9 minutes.
Wow.
With CT.
I'm sorry?
I was with the CT.
Wow. All right, very good. Very interesting.
Just for the group's knowledge, the other, some data that was presented by Dr. Benish and Cushman with the pilot for the pre-hospital LVO screening, it didn't go as planned. The N was somewhere in the low 200s, but about 180 of those were taken directly to endovascular capable centers. So the idea was, trying to figure out the feasibility of being a pre-hospital screening tool for LVOs, where they only got about 20 patients to spoke hospitals that ended up bypassing or going. And I think the sensitivity was horrible. It was about 50%.
So that was, the triage didn't work out well. What about those that went to the endovascular lab? Did they see a significant improvement in those patients?
They did not see the sensitivities that they thought that they would see, utilizing all 3 components of the Cincinnati plus gaze preference. But the N was very low. I think we all recognize the challenges in providers filling out those forms.
All right. Well, thanks for that update. I wondered.
We're still doing those?
We've had some discussions with Dr. Ballard.
Yeah. I remember you starting to talk with him.
Just to say they're very interested in having additional dialogue. They've been very open to providing training, so I'm sure if there's anything that you guys want to do, they'd entertain that.
Clearly, there's room for improvement for pre-hospital providers determining destination, level of care needed, things like that. So it's going to be an ongoing project, I think, for some time. Took a few years to kind of get STEMIs down to where we were doing well. I think stroke is a lot more complicated, so interesting. All right. I think Nate spoke to the physician credentialing. I am comfortable believing that we will have that done by next week. And certainly by then.
Is that the list?
The training and the examination portion of that. If we can get that, I think we have that ready for the next REMAC meeting, and then available this summer for physicians and groups to start working on.
So we already have the platform to push it out, so at that point it'll just be a push out to all the doctors and the health.
So remind me, I think we decided April 1st, wasn't it, that we wanted to get everyone credentialed? And so I was hoping to get a list of all the docs in the region and who was already credentialed through Monroe County versus anywhere
We'll
else.
reach out to Ben and see what he
It was a question that somebody in our group brought up as well, and I think it was brought up at the last meeting. So if the physician is credentialed with Melrose Day, do they need to be re-credentialed?
No, because of the collaborative protocols.
Okay.
But we do need to somehow find out who's credentialed through Melrose. And
I can't enforce it until
we need to somehow have physicians identified as credentialed or not credentialed. There was talk years ago, I think, Jamie, you had spoken about giving a physician sort of a med control number.
UMass Charts has a med control physician number section. They don't even identify themselves by name. They just say med control physician 712.
Just so that we know that the discussion was with a credentialed or non-credentialed physician under some
That's something
circumstances.
that this group wants to implement, that's fine. We can do that. It's just another number for people to remember.
Are they doing anything like that in Melrose currently?
I'll check.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Admittedly, I mean, Clifton, we don't get a lot of those calls. I can tell you our guys would struggle to remember that number.
I agree, and then, but maybe it's just as simple as using their license number.
Well, you can't use their license number. That's what most people are doing these days.
I was going to say the license number, maybe the last 3 digits of their license number, something like that, they wouldn't forget.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Look at state
from the chart, from all the charts I read, there's a lot of places around that do use a medical control ID number of some kind.
Right, but
Contacted physician 752, blah, blah, blah.
the providers will remember those numbers better than the docs will.
Zero question. Absolutely correct.
All right, so we'll try and get that done ASAP.
Well, I'll tell you where it came from, and it was because of the narcotics. But when you're giving a med control order for a narcotic, the person giving the narcotic order has to have the ability to both see the order and sign off that order. And while it was always waived, deep down there's actually a section that says that every order for narcotics may be signed off by the physician giving it. So.
I think what happens, at least in most of my agencies, is I end up signing off those orders.
Yeah, I get a bunch of messages from EMS charts. I end up signing them.
So. All right, we've already discussed the Finger Lakes CMS conference. Anything further?
No, not for the conference.
All right. The upgrade from Fishers Fire Department to BLS, or from BLS to ALS First Responder. Jim, you want to bring forth some more information?
And I'll just start out by thank you again for the clarification. I really appreciate that. The additional information that I'd like to bring very short today, just remind everyone that from our position there is no public need. The second point I'd like to bring is that this application has not been brought to this council by a municipality. Victor Farmington understands that a collective bargaining agency cannot represent the interests of the citizens of the municipality or act on behalf of elected officials of the municipality. The collective bargaining agency does not have standing in this matter. Victor Farmington objects that the application has been permitted to be amended during the course of this public hearing. Victor Farmington requests ample time to review the submission, research, and prepare a response. Fisher's amendment includes references to exhibits they have not provided. NFPA 1710, for example, is a large and expensive document. Victor Farmington understands that this standard may actually support our assertion that Fishers is not adequately staffed to provide ALS at the paramedic level. Victor Farmington requests the applicant provide the exhibits they have referenced for everyone on the council to review. Victor Farmington respectfully requests that this council review and consider the numerous concerns regarding this application for ALS that we have raised today and in our previously submitted briefing to this council. Based on any one of the many issues we have brought to the attention of this council, we believe the application must be denied. Thank you.
So, Jim, my take on that is, number one, we don't deal with municipalities, ever. We deal with provider agencies. When we have had other agencies approach us to change their level of service, we deal with the agency. I've never dealt with the town of Victor. I've never dealt with SOTUS, the town. I deal with SOTUS, the agency, Victor Farmington, ambulance, Fishers Fire Department. We deal with the agencies, okay? They are not looking to provide paramedic level care. They're looking to provide critical care level care. So their paramedics will practice at a lesser level. And again, the question brought to this committee, and it's very simply, it comes down to, would them providing this higher level of care be in the best interest for the community that they serve? And that's not dealing with the finances of Victor Farmington or Fisher. It's not dealing with the number of vehicles. We're dealing with just the care provided. So if they can have a critical care level provider at a patient's side sooner and provide that care sooner, would that be better for the patient? And that's the only question this group has to answer. Ross?
I'm going to clarify for the voting members and expand a little bit about what Dr. David talked about at the beginning of the meeting. I'm going to clarify your statutory responsibility when it comes to permitting ALS level practice by an agency. What you are considering, and only considering, is does that agency meet the requirements of this body to practice clinically at the level they're applying for. It has nothing to do with CON. It has nothing to do with determination of need. That is not the statutory authority in this body. That is the regional council. So any information provided regarding that is to be disregarded when they're considering this vote. You are determining if this agency has presented you with enough information for you to determine if they are capable of practicing at the level they're applying for. That's it.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Fishers, do you guys have anything that you would like to add to the discussion?
No, I think we've submitted everything. The only thing Dr. David off is work, just to clarify, is the AEMT level we're at. Just
I apologize.
we're on the-
Yes.
we're on the same page.
Yes, okay.
So it's not this unchanged request from the last meeting.
Okay. So they're going to practice at the AMT, not the AMT-CC. I apologize. Any more discussion? Because we do need to come up with a decision for these folks. Sir?
I might add, Dr. David, the only thing that we did clarify, based on some discussions we had post-meeting in January, was I gathered that while we had everything submitted that was proper as far as paperwork, the REMAC was maybe a little bit uncertain about who was providing the care. So I did submit for consideration just some biographies on those folks that would be providing care. And we realized that, while we may have the capability on paper to move to this level, certainly we need the practitioner level also. So the 5 providers that will start upon approval and upon field inspection from the Department of Health and finishing all of our Department of Health requirements, those 5 folks all have substantial experience at the paramedic level. Now, while they're at the AEMT level, these 5 people represent about an average of 8 years per provider in experience at the paramedic level. So I think from that perspective, I feel very ensured that the quality of the care that we're going to provide is to a very high standard. I think that's an important thing to know.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate that. Any further discussion?
Has there been any further work on an agreement between the agencies of handing out these patients? Because unless you're transporting the patients, my concern is that level of care consistent for that patient, and that's a matter of addressing the clinical situation and giving the best care, because in my understanding, it still needs 2 agencies.
That's correct. And last time in January, I kind of admitted that we identified we didn't have that, and we had sought that agreement, which at that time we didn't have, and we're not able to come to an agreement with Victor Farmington. Mr. Hood presented in his January statement that they have an agreement with the town of Victor, and that suffices. We have looked into that, and they work correct. So the town of Victor has an agreement for transport services. So in lieu of that information, we've realized that we do have an agreement in place, and that agreement is sufficient for us at the district as well. So we do have an agreement for transport services.
You determine that.
And second, Jim.
Victor Farmington would take objection to that statement.
So would you refuse to transport their patients?
Not comment at this time.
You have an agreement. Is Fishers in the town of Victor? And you have an agreement with the town of Victor to transport patients, but you can't comment that you would or would not transport those patients?
We have a contractual agreement under Section 122 of General Municipal Law. Our contract is with the town of Victor.
When you're dispatched to a call that is in the Fishers district, it's still in the town of Victor, you are...
They are separate municipalities legally.
I have a question. If you were dispatched to any call, appropriately dispatched at any location, would you ever refuse to transport?
This doesn't have the position we're taking has nothing to do. I can almost take what you said, Jack. What you're asking me is, will I provide medical care? Of course, we're going to provide medical care. But you're also asking me a legal question. And the legal question you're asking me is, does the contract I have with the town of Victor suffice to be a contract? Is Fisher's party to that contract?
Okay, I take that question off the table. Forget I asked that question.
I have to be careful with my answer as president.
Understood. Forget I asked that question. If you were dispatched to a call in the village, or in the Fishers District, would you respond?
We have a contract with the town of Victor that requires us to respond and provide that ambulatory.
So, in answer, yes. Okay. Correct? All right. Do you have any mutual aid agreements signed?
I'll introduce myself. I'm Dan, the new fire chief. I've been here a month.
Welcome, Dan.
Somewhere in the interview process, I failed to mention this.
I wonder why.
My second day, I almost quit again. So I'm slowly working on that. I did meet with a couple of the field officers from Victor Farmington Ambulance, trying to get a time that my schedule allows me to meet with Mr. Hood. Their board of directors actually emailed me last night and they want to meet. So we're working on that part. From what I've seen on the street, there's been no issue. The crews do a great job back and forth. I got 32 years in the fire and EMS service from Livingston, Monroe County, so that's my priority. The rest of this other stuff is not my problem. But my priority is obviously the street. There hasn't been an issue there, so I want to keep it that way. That's my goal anyway, so as we work through the behind the scenes things. That hasn't been addressed. Actually, I have 3 copies of the, I talked to DOH yesterday looking for a signature from them just to clean up some of this. It's a very basic document, as you guys probably know better than I do. But I did talk to Department of Health yesterday and got a copy of the EMS agency participation agreement that we've done to sign to tighten this up. We do believe, and we talked to council, that the town contract covers that also, because we are strictly the town.
Ooh, what's that guy sound like?
Sorry for the recording.
I didn't do it.
Now, well.
Jack, just to clarify, what are we in the REMAC being asked to do today?
The REMAC needs to approve or disapprove the change from BLS first responder to ALS first responder. Nothing more, nothing less.
Capability to provide that service, not necessarily enabling to provide that service in their district. That's another issue. That's the CON process.
Right. Correct. Yeah, you're right.
I guess
So-
my only concern would be from a you know, the agency perspective, the provider perspective of the second person to get that patient. You know, just like getting transfers into an ER. You know, you're always going to verify everything. You're always going to, you know, kind of check those things again, and I feel like that'd be, you know, we're potentially duplicating a fair amount of work for a difference in response time of a couple minutes, and the variability of what the group that's coming in, you know, coming into, whether they, you know, are coming into a BLS crew versus an EMT crew, and what the different interventions that may be done. I guess just the variability and inconsistency with that can be sometimes a bit of a challenge.
The state system is that it sends different level responders to responses. I mean, we operate a flag car response service that will transition care to other ALS agencies, and the state spent a lot of time on transition of care protocols and standards and everything. So I think that's been addressed. That's not that transfer issue is not specific to Fishers and Victor Farmington. It's specific to the whole state and the mutual aid process that's in place. So again, I would say it's a little bit outside the question that's being asked today.
But unless they got an agreement in place, that's not a great transition for patients.
However,
so I think that
they shouldn't require an agreement in place if no one else in the state requires that same agreement in place. They shouldn't be
so that's
an additional burden.
Certificate of need, application, all the things that need to be included is an agreement between the agencies.
We're not discussing certificate of needs.
I understand that, but this all goes back to consistency of care and making sure the patient's getting the best of care during the transition as well.
So I'm hearing everything that I think I'm hearing. we've already established that if Victor Farmington is dispatched to a call in the Fishers Fire District, which sits in the town of Victor, they're going to respond. All right? So are you telling me that the paramedics wouldn't do exactly what they would do anyway? I mean, I've worked clinically in the field for almost 30 years in multi-tiered systems where I've taken patients that have been turned over to me by another paramedic, and I still verify everything that's gone on. It's no different than if I was the first one there. I'm doing the same thing. So I don't understand. It sounds like it's trying to say you're creating extra work for the paramedic that's receiving that patient, and it's not. You'd be doing the exact same thing you would do if you were the first person on scene, correct?
I happen to be
So
pretty
then it's
well
being done
versed in
twice.
the Victor area because I live nearby.
You're looking at
And-
twice.
So if I bring a patient to you in the ED that I've intubated, are you not going to verify where that tube is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Same thing.
Victor responds from a central base in the town of Victor. Fishers is on the outskirts of that area. They service, they're first in on Eastview Mall and the Thruway, 490. I mean, they've got a very large district with a lot of fairly sick and badly injured patients. If I have an opportunity, the reason why I am working with them is because if I have an opportunity to get electricity to a cardiac arrest patient, an airway to a patient that doesn't have an airway, fluids to a patient that's bleeding out, and all the other care that they will be able to provide, if I can do that 5 minutes sooner, which I believe this agency could do, and sometimes more than 5 minutes, I think we have a chance to make a difference. As far as the politics, that's going to have to be sorted out at council, at state. I ain't got nothing to do with that. As a physician and a provider, my goal is to get patients care sooner, faster, and better. End of story. That's all I want to do.
And the Victor Farmington Agency is well-staffed and well-resourced, but does not have limitless resources. So in a situation where you're resource limited with no ambulance to respond, you could be pulling mutual aid from a significantly further distance away in a high-profile environment. A cardiac arrest where no one shows up for 15 minutes would be a disaster for the patient and for EMS as a whole.
Next in for Victor Farmington would be either Pittsford, Parrington, or Honey Falls, which or Finger Lakes even, Macedon Town. In weather like this, with the roads being bad, 15 minutes is not impossible. Whereas a vehicle with a crew, with in-house crew, is on the road in 1 minute.
They'd rather be here once they're in trouble.
There you go. That's why they hired that guy. Guys, again, it's very difficult, but we have to separate CON and politics. We have to look at care, period. And that's what we have to look at. That's our job. I like all of you, and you know that, but my role is to lead this group to look at level of care and provision of care. That's all we do. The rest is out of our hands. Call the question. Wow. Okay. So the question is, will this group say yes or no to...
I have another question.
Okay.
Why is this being presented to us now, just on the clinical basis, when there's so many other unresolved? And again, this is not the political and this is not the legal. I agree. I'm talking about consistency of clinical care. And it's the agreement and the consistency of clinical care that I'm concerned about. And
The reason that the cart is before the horse here is because it's a governmental process, number one. And without permission for them to provide that level, there's no sense in them going for the CON. If they don't have the permission, this is a permission for them to, like I said before, are they able to provide that care? Not, do they have the potential to provide that care, to use a better word? If the answer is yes, then they can move forward and see if there's a need that they need to meet, which is outside the purview of this group. No, they don't.
It also allows them to pursue additional training. for some of their other members.
Absolutely.
So we have to start someplace, and this is the way the state has told us to start.
Yeah, you have to have the permission to be able to practice at that level before you get the permit, so to speak, to actually do it.
In several months, we did approve them to do this so that they could get additional training. We've already approved it for them to facilitate training.
But we never approved them to
But
actually.
we never approved it
Yeah.
in part because of this issue.
So here's the thing, I'm seeing work towards a common goal on both sides. You have a new fire chief that is working to meet and create an agreement. You have training going on one side to prepare and get more consistency of response from Fishers when you're going to have more paramedic level trained responders. And then, both sides are working together. So again, everyone's already moving that way. So I would just like to see a mutual agreement between the two as far as consistency of practice, so that you're handing off and understand what both sides are doing. That's my challenge.
I'd like to see North Korea be a little bit friendly with us too, but I'm not sure it's going to happen right away.
No, we're better than that. I know.
I don't know. I think these guys have
your neighbors.
kind of met an impasse. And I think they're going to work together. In fact, I know they're going to work together because they don't have any choice, and they're going to work very well together. But when it comes to their public display of affection, we're probably not going to see that. It will get better over time, as most relationships do. Again, the question is a vote yes or no. Will the Finger Lakes REMAC approve Fishers Fire Department increasing their ability to provide care from BLS first responder to ALS first responder, with the level being AEMT? That is the only question we have to answer today.
And
so
I think we should probably request a roll call vote.
Roll call or hand?
No, roll call.
All right, call a roll call.
Dr. Cullen?
Yay.
Dr. Glick? Dr. Michelin?
Is that we're present or the actual vote?
The actual vote.
This is the actual.
Okay.
Yes?
Decided.
You can abstain, right?
I abstain. So there's an agreement.
Dr. Montesano?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn here. Last time I voted kind of against this, and I guess I'm not just speaking as one of the medical directors of Victor Farming, but I'm the director of the Victor Fire, and I'm a resident. You guys' hydrants are four blocks away from me. I would love to work out a mutual agreement. I would love to get the...
Assure him that you'll still put out his house fire if you need to.
I'm just writing down his address.
Yeah.
Based on this vote.
And I would love, and I offer my office to this too, at the gym. I want to wear everything. I would love to offer to work out a mutual, work out something, but I would love for us to get the funding to get our ambulances back to the Fisher Station. A lot of things. So I think in all conscience at this point, I'm going to have to abstain because...
Mr. Chairman, discussion's over, you're calling for a vote.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's all. Stay there.
Okay.
Dr. Surratt?
Yes.
Dr. Talbot?
Yes.
Dr. Davidoff?
I'm going to abstain as I'm Fisher's medical director.
So we have 4 yes and 3 abstain, so it passes.
Again, folks, this is looking towards a level of care, provision of care to our patients, has nothing to do with the need, the politics. However, I urge both of you groups, please try to come to some agreement. And I don't even have to mention, I don't even have to bring this up, but I will tell you what I'm thinking, but I know I don't need to bring it up, that this is not going to affect the level of care currently or in the future.
We've had discussions, as the chief said, reiterate what Chief Jackson said. We are keeping everything as professional as possible.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because remember, and I don't need to say this, but I will too, I'm watching you guys.
We're watching you guys.
Can we have a report back, honestly? Is there...
I think we will hear more about this.
I really want to know that we've gotten to a point, so... Because this is my family, too, that's involved in it, so...
I think most of you are aware that the upper end of any operation tends to not run as smoothly as the street does. And I'm pretty proud that the street for both agencies is seamless. The headbutting at the top, I'll get through it. We'll come to some mutual agreement.
And hang just a second. Yes, ma'am.
Does this not have to come as a CON in 2 years?
Well, because you guys are applying as a municipal CON, so I'm actually defer to the state.
Yeah, not if, when. They will be granted, if they meet the statutory requirements, pass an inspection, for lack of a better term, or to simplify it. A municipal CON for the first 2 years, and then at the end of that 2 years, currently, there's a process by which they would need to go through a public hearing and all that other stuff. That's the way it is currently.
And does it come to the council for the standard CON process?
Yeah.
And just to be totally transparent, as the chair of this REMAC, you do realize that any decision by this REMAC could be brought to the CMAC, and it could be reviewed by them as well. Just want to be fully transparent. Dr. Glick.
I was just going to say, even though I did vote yes, not to further the discussion, I don't think we would be here having this conversation, even contemplating these issues, tossing and turning over this, if it wasn't for the fact that Fishers does provide good care as they are right now, and Victor Farmington does provide fantastic care as well. And you're dealing with two good agencies. Victor Farmington has a great reputation. They've been providing great care. I don't think anyone has ever come up with big issues that have said, wow, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to get care by them. I fear for myself living in their area. They provide fantastic care. I don't think, so compliment them. I don't think we would be having this conversation. It would have been a quick vote to yes if they weren't providing great care.
I would have to agree. They have excellent providers at both agencies. Victor Farmington has always provided good quality care. Fishers has provided good BLS care. Not all fire departments respond to EMS, and they do, and they're very, very helpful and have provided good level of care, and I have no doubt they'll provide good care at advanced level too. And even without the reassurances, I know they will work well with Victor Farmington, it seems. So somehow we'll get through this. So my question is, what is the next step? It has to go to the council?
Well, they'll submit their application for the municipal certificate to the state, to
state,
or not, SEMSCO, which will go to our office. And basically, they'll be issued I'll be required to do an inspection to make sure that they meet all the regulatory requirements for equipment, staffing, all that stuff, just like any other agency when I do your inspection. And once that inspection is complete, if they're successful, they'll be issued a certificate that will be dated from the date of the Commission's resolution to establish that service for 2 years. As it stands now, just prior to that end of that 2-year mark, they will have to refile with the council, with the regional council, and go through the CON process just like they were a brand new agency to convert. That's the way it is now. That may change. I can't speak for that because I don't know where that is in the process. But there's some legal review into that. Drew.
Ross, can I ask a clarification question?
Yeah.
In the motion made in January, we added in that because of the requirement from the state that we have ALS approval, also that we have approval to provide BLS during periods when ALS is not available. I didn't think that was added into
today's motion. That's a foregone conclusion with any agency.
Okay, so we don't need to get specific approval today for that. Okay.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, folks. I know there was some tough discussion. Is there any new business anyone wants to bring forth? Yes, ma'am.
We have the EMS Memorial dedication is going to be May 21st in the Empire State Plaza in Albany. And then we have EMS Week is also during that week, if anyone's interested.
What do you know the dates for EMS Week?
19th.
What is it?
The 26th.
19th to the 26th.
Yes, 19th to the 20th.
The Memorial is like not a second, 21st, but it's actually Tuesday this year, not Wednesday.
That happens to be the date that remand is scheduled.
Yeah, it is. So I won't be here. I'll be in Albany.
Does anyone feel that that date for the REMAC should be changed? Or are we okay meeting on that day?
I will not be going, Bill. I'll be here.
Is everyone okay meeting on that day?
Well, we could.
We got your cell phone. All right. Other new business?
I attended the Finger Lakes All Partners meeting yesterday in Seneca County, just so I could go down and listen to what's going to happen for Woodstock in Watkins Glen. April 16th to the 18th.
August.
April, geez, August. Sorry about that.
Not ready for that yet.
So they said that there are only 100,000 tickets to be sold.
They said that back in the 70s.
Couldn't count then, and they still can't.
There are 40,000 campsites, there, which they said comes out to 2.5 people per campsite, and then they laughed. What they're saying, though, is that the tickets are for all 3 days, and they can't come and go. Once you're in, you're staying. So
Play that when you see it, too.
I'm just saying.
That's the plan.
All right, there'll be the low-end ticket price, the lowest ticket price right now is $400 a person. They will have physicians, mid-levels, nurses on scene, I'm assuming?
Yes, through an outside agency. It's not the local, typical RaceMed people. They've contracted with an outside
They
group
said
called
it's
Paradox.
Tim Page?
It's still going to be in Race Med, though, I think. They're
No,
still gonna RaceMed for their internal.
RaceMed's going to be closed. They're going to use the garage as a field hospital. I heard, as of this morning, RaceMed's going to be closed.
That discussion's still ongoing. The initial intent, Aaron, was that RaceMed would be open for workers.
Right.
I've heard yes, I've heard no.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going back and forth.
It changes
but
from day to day.
You heard the garage area is going to be set up as a field hospital.
Yes, that is definite.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest concern is that it's people who don't know the track, don't know the region. It's
Well, in their intent, and I'll speak to because I've read Paradox plan and I've been part of some of the planning meetings, not all of it because it's not my territory anymore. However, I will be living there for most of the month of August. Paradox is a nationwide outfit who has a base in New York City. They do large event stuff. Their plan is they'll have to increase their staffing. What they have planned right now is fine for 150,000. I'm going to tell you it's going to be more like 450,000. And they're aware of that. But they are utilizing all New York State licensed and certified providers, both physician, I can't remember if they had, and I won't use the term mid-level, I'll say NPs, PAs, that type of provider. And their paramedics are going to be local paramedics that are contracted with them. So, which is interesting because if they're using the local paramedics in their contract, who's going to staff the local agencies? That's not a question for me. That's for the people that want to be in charge. I'm just here to work.
They also said yesterday that with similar situations or venues they've had as many as 300 transports a day.
Their objective, and with having the license providers, the physicians, the NPs, PAs, ultimately what their goal is to treat and street as much as possible. All right, which by and large for something, unless there's a major incident like a stampede or something strange like that, most of it can be handled that way.
Closest hospital, Skylar, Soldiers and Salem.
Well, that's the other thing we're looking at. Is
CMC.
You've got Elmira, you've got Corning, which are the closest. And it's a bad term, but you'll understand when it's full-service hospitals.
Schuyler has very limited services, no surgery, no ortho.
Sometimes
and
no doctor.
Limited inpatient. And, well, many times no doctor, yeah.
Right, they're a critical access hospital, so there's,
And the soldiers, but.
But you got, think of the distance.
The majority of people that get transported off of that property are chest pains that are considered to be cardiac, major trauma, and people that need to be admitted. And most of those people were flying. They're going to upstate, Sayre, or...
Oddly enough, they have no aeromedical plan in there yet.
That's good to know.
Did they call? Good. Because I made it very clear we should have, there's 2 helipads at Race Medical, and there's one that can be used in the booth.
Yeah.
And for that size crowd, they better have birds on all 3 of them.
When I first spoke with him about a month and a half ago, he didn't feel there was a need.
Yeah, well,
So we
we're going to determine their need for this.
So I explained what we currently do, what's available sounds like similar to what you had. But we have had an initial conversation. I talked to Patrick Byrne yesterday to say, keep us in the loop with, as I was at that meeting as well, keep us in the loop with the planning.
No, he's, Eddie Major and Donnie Cruz.
Yeah, he was just the one. Yeah, and I talked to Don as well. I talked to Don yesterday as well.
They're outsourcing to you too.
Yeah.
The original plans for the fish weekend last year were way underestimated. Fortunately, that didn't go off.
It's interesting because the state, in a couple of the pre-planning meetings, the state police did a really nice presentation, and I have it if anybody wants to see it, on the history of the Woodstocks. What they said they were going to sell tickets for and what the actual attendance was. And every last one of them hit 400,000 plus.
That's a lot of wheelchairs and walkers for us old people. From the original Woodstock, come on.
Trust me, if they get up the hill, fine. Going down the hill ain't going to be a problem.
There will be medications available on site to get you out of your wheelchair. Don't you worry.
I'm not.
Well, if you wanted to. All right.
So the last thing they added to this, though, Aaron and I heard yesterday, was this will be live streamed, so please leave your clothes on.
Anyone that had been there previously, the last one.
In all seriousness, everybody in this room will be affected by that.
Yes.
Trust me. So just schedule your vacation now.
August 16th through the 18th.
Can we do a group bus now?
It's not important where you go, it's where you're not going to be.
What else you got?
I was just laughing at that.
Any other new business? All right. Yes, actually, just for fun, I would recommend all of you guys look up the history of Woodstock. And the original plan in Bethel was to have a local general practitioner with a few of his buddies provide the health care. Fortunately, there were 2 National Guard helicopters doing practice at West Point that were diverted to Bethel, and they used my elementary school as a field hospital. I was there at that scene, so it was very interesting. And I'm looking forward to the 50th. It may be the last thing I ever do. Any other new business?
Are you getting a ticket, Jack? Are you going as an
I'm working it. I wouldn't miss that for anything.
Oh, Lord.
I've already got my site picked up.
How many people can you put in a camper? You only allowed 2.5.
Sir.
Just as a matter of for my own edification, I want to thank everybody here on the council. Your passion is invigorating, all right? When we discuss things like we discussed today, I truly appreciate, your fervor in considering this stuff, so thanks for that. That's really what it's about here.
Well put, thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to comment on? If not, look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Second? All right, anyone opposed? in opposition. Thank you, folks. Be careful. Enjoy the spring weather.
I do have a question.